Hello, this is Mara Jane, and you're listening to The Unseen Perspective. Hello and welcome back to The Unseen Perspective. I am your host, Mara Jane, and once again I'm here with my bestie, Brooke Petro, and
Hi.
Today we have a very fun topic for you. So we are going to talk about common misconceptions that people have about blindness, and we are going to bust those myths.
I'm excited for this personally because these really bother me. They just annoy me because most of them are really easily debunked and explained. So we're gonna do that, and hopefully that will inform everyone, and they'll stop bringing them up to me constantly.
But with that said, they are humorous. So
They are very funny.
We have a list here, and we are going to go through them. So without further ado, let's get started. So the first one we have on the list is all blind people can't see at all. So that is false.
We're living proof of that. We both can see a little bit.
Yeah. So basically anyone with a incorrectable visual impairment is legally blind. So we all consider ourselves blind. So me, for example, I'm totally blind in my right eye, but I do have a fair amount of functional vision in my left eye, and Brooke can see too, but we're both blind.
Blind is kind of like an overall umbrella term. Like when somebody says blind, if I say I'm blind, I'm not saying like I can't see anything at all. I'm just saying my vision is bad enough that I have to make accommodations for it, is basically what a lot of people use blind for. I know some people will use legally blind if they have a lot of pretty usable vision, and it's just like for driving where their vision isn't very good. But if somebody says they're blind, that doesn't mean they have no vision, it just means they need extra accommodations. That side of people don't.
And just for the record, we can't drive.
Yeah, we can't. Very sad.
Not legally, at least.
You're not supposed to tell them about that.
The next one on the list, this is a good one. Blind people communicate using sign language.
We'll think about this one. Cue the Jeopardy theme music, but why can't blind people use sign language? It's because we can't see, and we can't see people's hands, and sign language is for people who can't hear, so they can visually see what people are saying. I feel like this one's pretty self-explanatory, but
You
I
would
also
think.
Yeah, I get this one a lot. But the interesting thing is, because people think that I need sign language, they don't ask me because they don't think I can hear them, and they will ask my friends. Like, one of my friends has been approached literally in public while I'm not there from someone who's seen her with me, and this old guy came up to her and was like, "Oh, does that blind girl need sign language? How do you talk to her?" And she literally told me, she was like, I looked at him and I walked away. And I was like, good on you, girl.
I mean, that is another thing too, is not specifically with sign language questions, but oftentimes people will address the person I'm with instead of me, with particularly with a question about my blindness, and I'm like, I can answer that.
Like, get it from the source.
Yeah.
You're gonna have the best answer, obviously.
But I do have a story about the sign language thing. So, in middle school, I was in choir, and there was one of my choir mates asked me one day if I communicated using sign language because I was blind. And I was like, no. And she's like, wait, then how do you communicate?
I
was like, what are we doing right now? I can speak. Like,
what did she say to that?
I don't even remember. I just, it was very strange.
If somebody asked me that directly, I probably would answer them politely and nicely and be like, oh, this is why. But, like, if somebody asked my friends, like, I'm not responsible for how my friends deal with it. So
Yeah.
if my friend walking away, honestly, that's perfectly reasonable.
Can't control other people.
And also, like, I would walk away if I wasn't used to answering questions like that.
I mean, yeah. And like we've said before, we are happy to answer any questions, no matter how ridiculous they may seem to us.
It's informing the public.
Yeah.
People know more about us if we answer questions.
Exactly.
So. Educating
Yeah.
the world. Yeah.
And the next one is kind of similar. It's, blind people need subtitles to watch TV or videos or movies or whatever.
Same idea. We can't read them, usually.
I did have a friend ask me, though, like, if I did need subtitles, if there was, like, some option that was, like, a refreshable braille display with subtitles on it. And I was like, oh, that would be cool.
That's kind of a cool idea,
but,
actually.
But yeah, in 7th grade, I think it was, I had a substitute in English class, and we were watching The Outsiders, and she asked me, when the other students had gone somewhere, I don't remember where they went, but she asked me if I needed the subtitles. And I was like, why?
Yeah. I understand where this question could come from if it's like a foreign language movie, and a lot of the time there actually isn't a solution for that. Like, I can't use subtitles, so I can't watch movies that are not dubbed in English if they're a foreign language movie. But for like American movies that are mostly in English and will have a section in a foreign language, like the example I can think of is Shang-Chi, the Marvel movie.
I still need to watch that.
You do? Oh, it's so good. But I actually use audio description for that, and what audio description is it's a track that goes along with the regular movie audio, and it kind of is spaced out between the dialogue, and it's a person describing what's going on. So it will say, like if I was narrating what I'm doing right now, say, Brooke reaches up and adjusts our glasses. That's what it would be doing between the dialogue the characters are saying. And so when there are subtitles like that, for foreign language segments, it will just read them in the descriptive voice, and then I don't have to worry about not understanding them.
I just make my parents read them to me.
Yeah, I do that when there is an audio description.
Yeah.
Which is usually when, you can get it in the movie theater, but if I'm watching at someone's house who doesn't have it on their settings, I make people read it, read the subtitles.
I don't think I've ever done the movie theater audio description before. I don't usually use audio description because I have enough functional vision to watch TV as long as I'm really close to it. But it is helpful because my eyes get very easily fatigued.
Yeah, I used to be I would watch things with audio description at home where I could turn it on my Netflix or my Disney Plus. But I was kind of against watching it with audio description in movie theaters because you have to go get specific headphones and they have to be at your specific theater playing the track for the movie. And I was kind of against it until I went and used it last summer, and now, like, I'm not going back. Like, it's so nice because I can't see what's going on. And now I finally don't have to ask my parents in a crowded movie theater, what's happening? Like,
people don't like that.
People don't. It is a little disruptive, so now the problem is solved.
It does sound cool, though. I want to try it.
It is really cool. If it works. Sometimes
it
doesn't work too well, but it's okay.
What can you do?
We get lucky sometimes.
And this isn't on the sheet, but another thing that's relevant is a lot of people think that we need to be spoken to extra loudly. That's another thing. We are not deaf. We are blind.
Yeah. The deaf-blind things, people get really confused by that, and I'm not really sure where that comes from.
It's interesting.
I think it might be like a Helen Keller thing. Like, people have heard so much about Helen Keller being deaf-blind that they kind of just absorb it for all blind people, which is interesting. And
some people are deaf-blind. Like, I have a certain degree of hearing loss, so I'm considered deaf-blind. But that's definitely not the case for all blind people.
And you also don't, like, use sign language.
Right. I'm not, like, deaf in the traditional sense. I just have high-frequency hearing loss, which makes it hard to hear high frequencies, obviously, and also it makes it hard to understand people in crowded areas. So it might be helpful to use sign language, but, I can't see. So the next one on our list is people that have vision that is correctable, or people that have a vision loss that is correctable by glasses or contact lenses are still legally blind.
Not true.
Nope. I mean, it's understandable, I guess. This one makes more sense. But if you have vision that becomes, like, close to average again if you are wearing corrective lenses, then that's not what we would consider, like, illegal visual impairment.
And legally blind is more of a description of like function than your actual vision as it is on its own. So like if you have vision loss but you can wear glasses that corrects, like if somebody has astigmatism and they have glasses that can correct it and they wear those glasses, then they can do all the things that a normal person would be able to do. And so that functionally means that they're not legally blind because they can just do everything the way a sighted person would, and that's why that term is the way it is.
Right. Like both me and Brooke have glasses that we wear every day, but they're not really for the same use. Like they don't really correct our vision all that much. Mine are mostly just for protection, although I do have a bifocal that is supposed to help me read print, but it's kind of annoying to use. I need to get new glasses anyway.
Oh yeah, I have glasses also for protection to keep things from going into my eyes, but they also have some magnifying, like the lenses magnify things for me. I don't have a prescription, just magnification, and they also are transition lenses, so when I go outside they'll get darker for me, which is really convenient since light can be kind of difficult for me to deal with. It's just that my eyes are pretty sensitive to it.
Yeah, I used to have transition glasses, but I don't know why I switched. I think it was because they didn't like adjust fast enough when I got back inside or something. But I also have very sensitive eyes. They're sensitive to light. Which, again, that's not the case for all blind people. That's just something that we happen to experience. So, speaking of reading print with my bifocals, which actually the reason I wanted bifocals was because I took your glasses and they had bifocals.
Oh yeah, but I used to have bifocals because my vision was better then, and I had bifocals. And
I loved it, so I was like, oh, I'm gonna get these, and so I did.
They're nice when you can use them.
Yeah, but this next one says that large print is a universal thing that is accessible to all visually impaired people or people with low vision.
And that's not true. It's kind of the opposite of the like all blind people see nothing myth, which is a common one as well, obviously. But like I can't use large print. My vision just isn't good enough for that, so I use Braille. And not all blind people use Braille either. It just depends on their level of vision and what they're comfortable with as well.
Yeah, and sometimes what people describe as large print is not large. Like, I've gotten so many large print things that are like 18-point font. I'm like, this is still small. Yeah. Like, to be able to read it, for me personally, I have to have it at like 30-point font at least to read it comfortably. So I kind of tend to stay away from large print, and I just magnify it on my computer instead. And I also read Braille, which I do a lot more than I used to, because I used to hate it for some reason. I thought it was uncool, but now I think it's cool.
That's good. Very helpful thing.
Yes. And there are a lot of visually impaired people that I have interacted with who are like totally opposed to Braille. Like they don't want to use it for whatever reason.
It tends to be a personal thing though. Like they don't think Braille is a bad thing. They're just like, I don't like it and I don't want to use it for whatever reason, and that's their own decision. And we can totally decide to use whatever accommodations we choose.
Right. Oh, you can hear that. Me reading the Braille.
Oh, yeah.
That's interesting. The next one on the list is that most people go to private or special schools. I mean, sometimes I think that would be nice, but no, that is not the case. Me and Brooke are both the only blind people at our schools, so that can present a lot of challenges. But there are special schools for the blind, like the Kansas State School for the Blind, where we do go for summer programs and camps and stuff.
And there are students that go there full time. I think this myth does come from a place of actual truth, because especially before, I would say from what I've heard, the 1970s or 80s, blind students were kind of expected to go to schools for the blind because regular school districts just did not or could not accommodate them. And so schools for the blind were basically the only schools for blind people. So they would go to the one in their state, and most people were from farther away from the school, so they would stay there and like live there. And that still happens for people who live in a public school district that won't accommodate them or that need more intensive services. They tend to go to schools for the blind. But now, because of partially technology and also I think disability activism and awareness, we're now able to go to public schools. Oh, and also because of the ADA, I love the ADA,
Oh, yes.
the Americans with Disabilities Act, which basically says that we are people who deserve to have our accommodations met. And so
Yeah.
schools now have to meet our needs and educate us, which is really important. And I can't believe that type of legislation wasn't passed until the 90s, but it's passed. And I'm gonna take the win.
Yeah, I would have loved to be an 80s child for the vibes, but I'm definitely glad I live in a time that is more accessible to people with disabilities.
Yeah, so public school is a lot more doable now than it used to be. So that myth is kind of untrue. Definitely now a myth.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's beneficial for blind people and people with disabilities to be in mainstream schools because it teaches us how to advocate for ourselves and how to get what we need and go out of our way to, make sure that we can learn as much or at the same level as our sighted peers. And it gets us prepared for the future. So whereas at a specialized school, we might be more taken care of in that manner, which would be nice, but not as preparatory for the future.
Yeah, I wouldn't trade going to like a regular school for much. I really liked having that experience and exposure.
I liked it too in a certain sense, but it is very frustrating sometimes. But I will say St. James is a lot better than where I went to middle school, because they just didn't understand like what I needed, and they weren't really willing to. At least a lot of them weren't. But when I got to St. James, they have like an amazing support staff of like accommodation specialists, counselors, whatever. I feel very supported, and even though I still have to like accommodate for what I need, they're very understanding and they're willing to do whatever they need to provide me with an optimal learning experience.
Yeah, that's a good point. Just because we have the ADA and we should get our accommodations doesn't mean we do. And having that fixed can sometimes mean going to court, which not all people can afford. So it can be very difficult. The problem isn't gone, it's just slightly better than it used to be.
Yeah.
But we're making progress. Technology's helping a lot in that. Yeah. And I think things will continue to get better.
I hope so. So we're done with this list, but we did have a couple of other things that we thought about that we also want to talk about.
Yeah, a lot of these are like movies and TV based, kind of like media. I feel like kind of pushes these ones. So one of them is that blind people do face touching, which is when a lot of the time in movies you'll see blind people who will go up to people and touch their faces to recognize who they are. And I just want to say, this is highly impractical. Like, why would you do that?
I'm so uncomfortable doing that.
I know. Well, and also, I can just recognize people's voices.
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand why. I think it's just the thinking that sighted people have. Like, I look at someone's face to recognize them, so that's how you recognize a person. Which isn't really true. I just recognize people's voices. And sometimes I'm wrong, but I'm more right than a lot of sighted people would expect.
I mean, that is nice. Another nice thing about being blind is we appreciate voices more. So, like, if someone has a nice voice, then we're like, oh, they have such a nice voice. And a sighted person will be like, I guess so, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting how we, like, interact with people's voices, too. Because we don't have that appearance feature. And that's a whole other discussion. But another one of the myths is that we can see in our dreams. And I do actually know where this one comes from. So this one comes from people who've lost their vision later in life. And what will happen is their brain is so used to them having vision for most of their life that after they lose vision, their brain just has to catch up in the, like, memory and, like, dream part of itself, I guess. Because your memories are still going to be with vision. And so, like, your brain is used to having vision, and so it has dreams have vision as well, which is a very true thing for people who lose their vision later in life. But for people like me who've been blind, and I think like you, even though you lost your vision after you were born, like I've always been blind, but since you didn't have it for that long, you didn't really experience this. But I can't see in my dreams because I've never been able to. So, like, I can't imagine what that would look like. I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't remember a time when I could see, like, normally. I actually don't know if I was born with retinoblastoma or not, because, I mean, I don't remember, I was a baby. But either way, I am the same way. I see the same in my dreams as I do in real life, so that's badly out of one eye. I did have a dream one time that I could see out of both eyes, but I have no reference to base that on, so it was, like, not... I couldn't actually see out of both eyes, you know? Although that would be cool. But it's impossible to kind of, I guess, imagine a sense that you don't have. So, like, for people who have always been totally blind, they can't see in real life, so how are they going to see in their dreams?
Yep. Another one is that blind people all want a cure to their blindness, and I would like to disagree. There isn't a cure for my condition. There's doctors who are working on one. It's a complicated thing, and it probably won't happen and be accessible for a few decades, if it happens at all. And I think a lot of people, when they hear that, are like, so you're gonna get your vision back? And I'm like, well, maybe. Because I've lived as a blind person for my entire life. Like, going from blind to sighted is just as big of a change as somebody who is sighted losing their vision. Like, you might have things that are easier, but you also have to learn how to do things in a completely different way that you didn't used to have to do.
Right.
So, and it could also be a social thing. Like, you have the blind community and you kind of don't want to lose that. For me, I understand that. And then also, it kind of, when people talk to me about this, it kind of shows that they believe that blindness is a negative thing, like something that I would want to fix. And I think that's just wrong, because for me, blindness isn't a negative on its own. It's difficult to deal with. People aren't used to it, but I don't want it to be fixed just for the sake of being normal.
Right.
So I think that myth is kind of annoying, personally.
We like the way we are.
Yeah. It's other people that can be a problem.
I mean, so true. But, I mean, yeah, it would be, in a sense, nice to have vision out of both eyes, or, like, better vision, but I don't think I would choose to have that, just because I'm so used to living this way, and it's formed me into who I am today. I don't think I would give up my blindness, which sounds strange, but I don't think I would.
And then the last myth is that all blind people are good at music. You can talk on this one. You know more about this than me.
Yeah. I mean, I do know blind people, including myself, that are musically inclined, but it's not all of us. And people oftentimes think, too, that we have, like, superior senses. Like, our other senses are superior because we're blind, which isn't technically true. Yeah, that's another one.
Yeah, I forgot about that. That one is not true.
It's not true. I mean, it has some basis in truth, because since we can't see as well as other people, we have to kind of focus more on hearing and smelling and feeling and whatever. But it doesn't, like, heighten our senses. It just makes us more aware of them and utilize them more than a sighted person would.
Yeah, and so, like, if a sighted person closed their eyes and paid attention to their hearing, they'd probably hear just as well as we do.
Yeah. But back to the music thing. I mean, we're people. I mean, some of us are good at music, some of us aren't. Just like a sighted person. And I don't understand, like, why that's a thing. Because, I mean, I guess the better hearing thing, but
I think it's kind of because a lot of blind people, I think it is true that, like, more than average blind people are musically inclined. Like, I definitely think that compared to the greater population, we're more likely to be interested in music. But that's also possibly because it's an accessible thing for us. Like, it's something we can do without having to see, and so we just kind of get into it. I feel like there might be sighted people who are just as musically inclined, but can do visual activities.
Right.
And so they don't go to music first.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Actually, I never thought of it that way. I love music, though. I mean, I think music is great, but that's just me.
Yeah, me too. I agree.
Actually, we both play piano. we're cool like that.
I'm not very good at it, but
Me neither.
I
It's
take
okay.
lessons. Yeah, and I'm in choir, and so are you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, choir's so fun.
Yeah, it is.
A frustrating thing about choir, though, is I can't sight read. So, well, I can, but it has to be, like, very large. And since I'm not well practiced in it, I'm not very good at it unless it's really simple. I mean, I'm pretty good at considering the circumstances, but for all state auditions, we have to sight read. That's, like, part of our audition. Mm-hmm. So it's really annoying because, like, it has sight in the name. Like, how do you expect me to do that? Like,
yeah, that seems a little strange.
Mm-hmm. It was fine, though. I made it to state.
Nice.
I guess I sang really well.
Mm-hmm.
Yay me.
Good for you.
There is Braille music, and I tried to learn it at some point, but it was annoying, so.
It's really complicated. I've had to look into it, and I've never tried to learn it because it's definitely a musician's thing, which obviously music notation is in any case, mm-hmm. but it's like people who use Braille music are probably really advanced. For normal blind people, especially singers, it's not really helpful because it's too complicated and not worth having. It's just easier to hear it and memorize it instead.
We just learn by ear.
Mm-hmm.
Which is nice. I mean, I think anyone's capable of that if they just focus enough on the audible world, which we are kind of forced to do. But yeah. Mm-hmm. Is there any other ones that we didn't think about?
I'm not thinking of any extra ones.
I'm sure there's more, but
there are tons.
Yeah,
we could probably go on for hours, but those are the main ones.
Mm-hmm.
I think
those are the major ones. But of course, we're still happy to answer any questions that anyone has for us. So don't be afraid. Don't let this intimidate you. Bless you. Don't let this intimidate you out of like asking us questions, because we're not going to be offended, or we're not going to like get mad at you. We might get a little laugh out of it, but that doesn't mean that you're stupid. We still want to hear your questions, and we're more than happy to answer them.
We're happy you're asking them at all.
Yes, true. Better that than, I hate it when people like walk on eggshells around me. I can't stand it, because I would rather like just talk to me. If you're wondering about something, then just ask me.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with that.
But I mean, yeah, I think that is all for now. That was fun.
Yeah, that was really cool.
So hopefully that was informative and beneficial to all of our listeners. Mm-hmm. And that's it for today. So I hope you have a wonderful day, night, morning, afternoon, whenever you're listening to this. And tune in next time. Bye!